Welcome back. Let's stick to my plan. Read the history of Virginia. It's 6 p.m. So I've been tired because I did not sleep so much tonight, and I wake up 6 a.m. And I've opened a lot. I will look later. We cannot move down here because the other one, this is my stuff I have already read. This one, I have 100 web pages. This one go out somewhere there. It just continue, but you cannot open more. All these small web pages continue all the way out here, so we cannot put more there. That's on my list. I was to read about the radio. I have it here. This one about radio stuff and wireless telegraph. I made it ready there. When I finish reading, I'm going to back read this. Then reading the telegraph before the radio. We have the Morse code and wireless telegraph in the old West. We have old railroads. There. So we cannot put more there. This is all my aircrafts. I was reading about fighter jets. That's all fighter jets. Actually, that's the first American fighter jets in around World War II. So that's all kind of old fighter jet from 40s and 50s. This is United Kingdom. This one is American P-80 American. Yes, but something my computer's not so good as Nazi Germany. So let's Nazi Germany. So let's keep it there. So let's find the history of Virginia. I need a little time to find it. So that's Virginia, North Virginia. Then I did open all this. I have to look at this later, what to do. Got two of this, so let's close one because I have two. That West Virginia. So it did not be actually. We have a state called West Virginia. We got a state called West Virginia. I did not know that, so we need to read about that. So let's move this in front of Virginia. So that's a state called West Virginia, and Virginia This city should have a low crime. This Fairfax city should have a low crime rate. That's big shopping mall. That's for cars, electronic toll collector. South from Maryland. No, let's move it back to this course housing. Housing is expensive in North Virginia, close to Washington DC. So many people, they're moving to like here. They're moving to south of Maryland and this county to get some cheaper housing. So that's why that's Washington DC. Fairfax, but I have the city Fairfax somewhere. Six, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got Fairfax. Fairfax County. That's a swamp. Chesapeake Bay, Bible Belt, mega church. No, I need a list of lowest income. Not highest. Lowest income, not highest, but it's lowest. That's in Georgia or Colorado. Georgia, but that's south. Georgia, that's nice place. 7,000. That's Georgia State down there. So we need to read about that. There's no snow down here. Maybe I can rent an apartment, $1,000. That's the lowest income county, the whole United States. I need to go to there. And that's Georgia, that's fine. But don't need to be there, but we can do a list later. That's Colorado. Union. That's in Florida. I thought Florida was super expensive. That's in North Florida. But let's look at this later. So that's a lot of money. West Virginia house insurance. So housing is a big problem, but that's everywhere in Europe. The housing prices is insane high, like everywhere, Germany, United Kingdom. So this will take like forever to read this housing in Virginia. Hampton Road, that's in this city. Minimum wage. And minimum wage in United States. So that's a big Virginia, the world's largest naval base, big aircraft carriers for fighter jets. You can see that from I follow some of this. I follow on my Twitter. And submarines, atomic submarines. Dollar trees like Walmart. I like to read stuff like this. I don't know why I opened this. Income tax, tax returns. Ikke poverty, but property tax. Property tax very high around New York City. I can see this. So we have to look up. Old time, that's like banjo music. And bluegrass music. That's a pony in Virginia. I like to read this. That's about Canada. Cannabis. I not smoke that. Did when I was a young teenager. I smoke. That's a Republican Party. Republican Party. Black belts. Swing states. Washington Post. That's a newspaper. Silver line, that's a train line. railroads. So I really mess it up. Square dance. State horses. History of Virginia. There, let's move it. So that's West Virginia, Virginia, Northern Virginia, history there, good. And I need half a minute to get to my bed. I think I should bicycle and buy a little candy later tonight. Buy more, 2 more big discount cola and a little bag of candy.
History of Virginia. The written history of Virginia begins with documentation by the first Spanish explorers to reach the area in the 16th century, when it was occupied chiefly by Algonquian, Iroquoian, and Shawan peoples. In 1607, English colonization began in present-day Virginia with Jamestown, which became the first permanent English settlement in North America. The Virginia Company colony was looking for gold and spices, and land to grow crops. However, they would find no fortunes in the area, and struggled to maintain a food supply. The settlement survived the famine during the harsh winter of 1609, which forced colonists to eat leather from their clothes and boots, and resort to cannibalism. In 1610, survivors abandoned Jamestown, although they returned after meeting a resupply convoy in the James River. Soon thereafter, during the early 17th century, tobacco emerged as a profitable export. It was chiefly grown on plantations, using primarily enslaved labor for the intensive hand labor involved. After 1662, the colony turned black slavery into a hereditary racial caste. Jamestown would serve as the colony of Virginia's capital from 1607 to 1699, until the capital was moved to Williamsburg, Virginia, from 1699 to 1780. Since 1780, Virginia's capital city has been Richmond, Virginia. By 1750, the primary cultivators of the cash crop were West African slaves. While the plantations thrived because of the high demand for tobacco, most white settlers in the colony raised their families on subsistence farms. Warfare with the Virginia Indian nations had been an ongoing factor during the 17th century. After 1700, there was continued conflict with natives east of the Alleghenies, especially in the French and Indian War, 1754–1763, when the tribes were allied with the French. The Virginia colony became the wealthiest and most populated of the 13 colonies in North America with an elected General Assembly. The colony was dominated by wealthy planters, who were also in control of the established Anglican Church. Baptist and Methodist preachers brought the Great Awakening, welcoming black members, and leading to many evangelical and racially integrated churches. In 1776, Virginia and the rest of the American colonies would declare independence from Great Britain, helping form the United States. Virginia planters had a major role in gaining independence and in the development of democratic Republican ideals of the United States. They were important in the Declaration of Independence, writing the Constitutional Convention, and preserving protection for the slave trade, and establishing the Bill of Rights. In 1780, the capital of Virginia moved to Richmond, Virginia, where it has remained since. Virginia was the 10th state to ratify the U.S. Constitution on the 25th of June, 1788. The state of Kentucky separated from Virginia in 1792. 4 of the first 5 U.S. presidents were Virginians: George Washington, the father of his country, and after 1800, the Virginia dynasty of presidents for 24 years, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and James Monroe. During the first half of the 19th century, tobacco prices declined and tobacco lands lost much of their fertility. Planters adopted mixed farming, with an emphasis on wheat and livestock, which required less labor. The constitutions of 1830 and 1850 expanded suffrage but did not equalize white male apportionment statewide. The population grew slowly from 700,000 in 1790, to 1 million in 1830, to 1.2 million in 1860. Virginia was the largest state population-wise to join the Confederate States in 1861. It became the major theater of war during the American Civil War, 1861-1865. Southern Unionists in Western Virginia created the separate state of West Virginia in 1863. Virginia's economy was devastated during the Civil War and disrupted in the Reconstruction era, 1865-1877, when it was administered as Military District No. 1. The first signs of recovery were seen in tobacco cultivation and the related cigarette industry, followed by coal mining, and increasing industrialization within the state. In 1883, conservative white Democrats regained power in the state government, leading to the implementation of Jim Crow laws. The 1902 Constitution would hinder many poor white voters and effectively disfranchised blacks from voting, until federal civil rights legislation in the mid-1960s. From the early to mid-20th century, the state was dominated by the Byrd Organization, with dominance by rural counties aligned in a Democratic Party machine. Their hold was broken over their failed massive resistance to school integration. As with the rest of the country, the Great Depression of the 1930s brought hard economic times. During and after World War II, the state's economy thrived, with a new industrial and urban base. A statewide community college system would develop during the 1960s. By the 1980s, Virginia's population growth was mainly fueled from economic growth in the Washington, D.C. area in Northern Virginia, in large part due to expansion of the federal government. The first African-American governor of a U.S. state since the Reconstruction era, and first African-American ever to be elected as state governor, was Virginia's Douglas Wilder in 1990. From the late 20th century and into the 21st century, the contemporary economy of Virginia continued to grow and become more diversified, with added high-tech industries and defense-related businesses. In the 2020 U.S. Census, Virginia's population reached 8.6 million people. Pre-contact, edit. Main article, Native American tribes in Virginia. 4 millennia before the arrival of the Europeans, indigenous peoples of the northeastern woodlands inhabited the lands that would be named Virginia. Archaeological and historical research by anthropologist Helen C. Roundtree and others has documented 3,000 years of settlement in much of the Tidewater. Even so, a historical marker dedicated in 2015 states that recent archaeological work at Pocahontas Island has revealed pre-contact settlement dating to about 6,500 BCE. Indigenous peoples, edit. In 16th century, what is now Virginia was occupied by 3 main linguistics groups, Iroquoian, Eastern Shawan, and the Algonquian. The tip of the Delmarva Peninsula south of the Indian River was controlled by the Algonquian Nanticoke. Meanwhile, The tidewater region along the Chesapeake Bay coastline appears to have been controlled by the Algonquian Piscataway, who lived around the Potomac River, the Powhatan and Chowanoke, or Roanoke, who lived between the James and Neuse rivers. Inland were two Iroquoian tribes, the Nottoway and the Mehurin. The rest of Virginia was settled almost entirely by Eastern Chowan-speaking peoples, divided between the Monaghan and the Manahoac, who held lands from central West Virginia, through southern Virginia and up to the Maryland border. The region of the Shenandoah River Valley was controlled by a different people. Also, communities from Mississippian cultures may have just barely crossed over into the state into its southwestern corner. Later, these tribes merged to form the Yuchi. Algonquian, edit. Rowntree wrote that empire more accurately describes the political structure of the Powhatan. In the late 16th and early 17th centuries, a chief named Weyhunts-Unicock created this powerful empire by conquering or affiliating with approximately 30 tribes whose territories covered much of what is now eastern Virginia. Known as the Powhatan, or Paramount Chief, he called this area Tenacomacre, densely inhabited land. The empire was advantageous to some tribes, who were periodically threatened by other groups, such as the Monacan. The first English colony, Jamestown, was allegedly allowed to be settled by Chief Powhatan as he wanted new military and economic advantages over the Chowans west of his people. The following chief, Opeshankana, succeeded him within only a couple of years after contact and had a much different view of the English. He led several failed uprisings, which caused his people to fracture, some tribes going south to live among the Chowanoke or north to live among the Piscataway. After that, one of his sons took several Powhatans and moved off to the northwest, becoming the Shawnee, and took over former Susquehannock territories. Recorded in the states of Maryland and Pennsylvania throughout the 17th century, they eventually made their way into the Ohio River Valley, where they are believed to have merged with a variety of other native peoples to form the powerful confederacy that controlled the area that is now West Virginia until the Shawnee Wars, 1811-1813. By only 1646, very few Powhatans remained and were policed harshly by the English, no longer even allowed to choose their own leaders. They were organized into the Pamunkey and Mattapony tribes. They eventually dissolved altogether and merged into colonial society. The Piscataway were pushed north on the Potomac River early in their history, coming to be cut off from the rest of their people. While some stayed, others chose to migrate west. Their movements are generally unrecorded in the historical record, but they reappear at Fort Detroit in modern-day Michigan by the end of the 18th century. These Piscataways are said to have moved to Canada and probably merged with the Mississaugas, who had broken away from the Anishinaabe and migrated southeast into that same region. Despite that, many Piscataway stayed in Virginia and Maryland until the modern day. Other members of the Piscataway also merged with the Nanticoke. The Nanticoke seem to have been largely confined to Indian towns but relocated